welcome back to Up the Villa podcast. We've got a special episode today. We're going to be talking about West Midlands football in general, so not just Aston Villa. Delighted we've got the voice of the West Midlands, Justin, on. Daz, how come he's on? How come he's on more than you?
I tell you what, it's got photos of me, and it's just like, it's
and I will use them.
So Daz Hale is our special guest today, BBC WM football phone-in presenter. How are you, mate?
I'm good, yeah. And obviously there's a lot to talk about at the moment, isn't there? It was unusual, actually, on the phone-in tonight, Wednesday, because no one's got anything to moan about. It's really unusual at the moment. At least normally got at least one of our clubs. It's like it's the end of the world.
Most of it.
Yeah, everyone's quite upbeat at the moment, I think, which is great, really.
Well, that leads us on to this episode, really, because I've been thinking about, West Midlands football as a whole, and I feel like we're starting to get into quite a good place. I mean, there's always one that lets the side down, but I'm sure we'll get on to Birmingham City later on anyway. But how do you feel about it, Daz? You've got Villa third in the Premier League, Wolves mid-table doing pretty well, West Brom look like they're going to get playoffs at least. So as a whole, how do you think we're doing at the minute?
Well, that's it. I mean, and obviously we cover Walsall as well, who've been on a really good run just recently. So they're within touching distance of the playoffs. I think the thing is, isn't it, as a fan, that you want your club to be ambitious, and I think that a number of our clubs at the moment, not all of them, have got that ambition, even if things aren't always panning out just the way you want to be. But I think as well, I think Villa are doing brilliantly. I think they're doing better than a lot of people thought they would. I mean, I think everyone was optimistic this season under Unai, but if you'd said like at Christmas you'd be joint top of the Premier League, no one saw that coming. Most people, including Wolves fans, thought Wolves would be battling against relegation this season, and they've got a 12-point buffer at the moment. Albion fans were thinking, blimey, with the squad we've got and all the problems going on behind the scenes, do well to stay up. So I think there's got three teams there out of the five who are actually doing better than perhaps we thought they would back in August. So that's always a good feeling, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think the region as a whole, I can't remember what year it was, but that season where you got Villa, Blues, West Brom, Wolves, all in the Premier League at the same time. I feel like, at the minute, the Premier League, London clubs rule the roost, don't they? Nobody really thinks of like Birmingham as like this football juggernaut at all. It's then goes to Manchester. So, Justin, how are you feeling about Midlands football at the minute?
Well, I'm a passionate advocate of Midlands football. Always have been. Obviously, I'll follow Villa, and that's where my love lies. But over the years, I think it's very important to have successful clubs in the area for the bigger picture. Really, like Daz was saying, the dominance of the other areas of the country, it makes me angry really, because we've got some phenomenal football clubs in this area, and the passion and that the fans have got is as big as anywhere. I don't get this that so fans are more passionate than others. That's just not the case for me. Newcastle always bleat on that they've got the most passion. It's rubbish. Every single fan base has got really hardcore, passionate supporters, and the West Midlands is no different. We've got some really, really big clubs, historical clubs, and clubs that really should be doing better than they are at the moment, and they're all battling to sort of get out of where the positions they're in, barring probably Villa at the moment. Everybody would like to be a bit higher up. But that's just the way football goes, and it's very cyclical. We've seen periods where all the teams have been in the top flight, and at the moment, one or two are sort of struggling to get back up there. But we'll get onto individual clubs in a minute, I suppose. But overall, I think we're not in a terrible state at the moment. It could be better, but I think there's lots of positive signs around the corner. I think for a lot of our Midlands clubs.
Definitely. So we are. So go on, Daz.
Don't we? No one, obviously, of course you do. But the thing is, and I agree with everything Justin said there, nothing's changed, because I'm old enough to remember when Villa won the league, and the national narrative was all Ipswich. No, they didn't even. Nobody in the national media wanted Villa to win the league. Hence the "Do you want to bet against us?" quote from Ron Saunders. And here we are now, all these years later, and still you were joint top of the Premier League, and still no one was talking. They was talking about teams you'd just beaten who were below you. No one was talking about Villa, and it's right. And I know there's like we could talk about teams that got empty seats and this that. This is a really passionate area for football, and when your team's doing well, it affects the whole mood of the place, of the town, of the city, and you can feel it as you walk around the places. And when it's not going well, and we've experienced this more than when it is. I've said before, like in cartoons when there's that little man and he's walking around and there's like this rain cloud above his head and it's rain. That feels, and we still
times.
it's not fashionable, never has been, and it makes me angry. It really does wind me up. I mean, even when on the FA Cup draw last week, it was pulled out West Bromwich Albion against Brentford or Wolves. ITV don't even clock it. It was like, nice. Two teams who won the FA Cup, God knows how many times between, didn't even clock it, and nothing's changed. And like that's why I feel so passionate about what you guys are doing and what we do on the radio as well. It's just a voice where you're not going to be wheeled on for 2 minutes on Talk Sport, patted on the head, and right then let's start talking about Man United again or Arsenal or Spurs. It's where you actually get the chance to talk about your team because I've said it matters, and it matters to people around here. And I've had a rant, haven't I? But that's how I feel. Sorry. Really gets to me.
That's great stuff. So we're going to touch on all 5 clubs then, but I thought it's not fair for me to pick Villa first and Blues last. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little draw. So I'm going to pick out the teams at random, and we're going to talk about each team at random. Then, so
this bit.
piece of paper number 1 is Birmingham City. Right.
Have we got an independent adjudicator?
So let's get stuck into these then. It's what I mean. I've got quite a few Blues friends who are Blues fans, and I can never get my head around it all because it's just the same conversation every single season. They either start well and end bad, or start bad and end well. But this season has been mad. That started so well with Eustace, and I thought if they'd have stuck with him, they'd have probably got the playoffs. It just felt like a team that was together and, one of those teams that sort of aren't expected to do well in that season and end up doing really well. Sack him, Rooney comes in, absolute disaster. And now they've made a good appointment, in my opinion, in Tony Mowbray, who, given time, will probably stabilise them and give them a platform to move forward. So, Daz, I mean, you've probably had loads of callers calling up. I know Polly is one of your callers as well. Yeah. So, what's the general consensus been then of Blues' season?
Well, 3 managers in 3 months. I mean, Ian Beale's marriages last longer than that, do they? Everyone, I mean, you touched upon it there with the whole Eustace thing. I think a lot of Blues fans it happened with Rowett, didn't it? And they were doing well, and they brought in Zola, and everyone said, we've seen this movie before. And so it panned out, and it was just, I think I agree with you. I think they've got the right manager now. And I think I draw comparisons again a little bit with when Fosun came in at Wolves, and I don't know if you remember the guy, they appointed Walter Zenga. They sacked Kenny Jackett, appointed Walter Zenga, who was just bonkers. He lasted about 12 matches. And then they had to bring Lambert in just to keep him up. And then the following year, they managed to get Nuno. So I think when you come in and they have all these big ideas, and sometimes it takes a bit of a while just to get your feet under the table. And I suppose to a degree, you could almost say the same thing with when Gerrard was brought in, because you can look at Gary Cook and Rooney, and you can look at Purslow and Gerrard. It's the whole fanboy thing, and it's not. Well, look, we all know, don't we? It's not about how famous you are, how good a footballer you are, or how many Instagram followers you got. It's are you a good manager? And they've got one now, Tony Mowbray. I think you're right, and I think he gets the club, and he just gets football, and he can smell bull a mile off, can't he, Tony Mowbray? So I'm guessing that the intentions are honourable of the owners. Again, they're talking a good game. We'll find out, won't we? But I think if he wouldn't have took the job if he thought that there was anything. If they were just all talk and no action. So we'll see. And it'd be interesting to see if they end up staying at St Andrews as well.
you think they might move then?
I wouldn't rule it out. I don't know anything, but I certainly wouldn't rule it out. I think that, well, we'll see, won't we? But I think there's a lot of, we'll see. But I wouldn't rule it out. I think it might be cheaper to build a new stadium than repair the one they've got now. But we'll see.
Well, if it's anything like the other night, they might want to downgrade, not upgrade.
Couldn't resist it, could he? He couldn't resist it. Going so well, and we want to.
No, Daz, I've got to give the viewers what they want, and it's a Villa fan. We'll get on. Right, next one out the cup. Then we are going to go with Wolves. Wolves are the next team. Justin, your next door neighbour is a Wolves fan. If you had to talk about their season, then how would you summarise Wolves and where can they go? And O'Neill, how's he doing?
I've got to be fair to Wolves. I know there's another chap on his screen is a Wolves fan, so I'm going to be kind to him. But I'm going to talk honestly. I had them down to get relegated this season, as we know at the start of the season when we did our preview pod. We predicted where we thought everyone was going to finish. I had Wolves to struggle last season, and I think people thought I was, what you're talking about. They're in a decent position, and they did. And then I just felt that momentum was going to follow through to this season, and I saw them really, really struggling. And that was a prediction when Lopetegui was manager, and with all the things swirling around him at the start of the season. Obviously the amount of players they had to shed, 17 odd players I think it was, and which now looks like a very good move, doesn't it, considering what's happening to the other clubs that have suddenly become FFP targets now. So financially off the pitch, I think it's been a success, a huge success. I think I know they're in not in great monetary trouble, but I'm saying that they're not in FFP trouble, and that was the whole point surrounding that. And then when the decision was made, well, when Lopetegui decided to walk out and they brought Gary O'Neill in, I know a lot of Wolves fans that were very, very underwhelmed by that appointment, but they're not underwhelmed anymore, are they? They are utter converts. I don't know a Wolves fan now that I talk to that's not, absolutely over the moon with what he's done. And so they should be, because he's done an absolutely phenomenal job, as much as it pains me to say it. He's done a really, really good, solid job. A bit of a job, I suppose, that they want, that you would think Blues would want Mowbray to do going in there now. And you've got to give them credit, they've shed well over a full first team and a few subs of absolute quality players. They haven't shed kids. They've shed most of the first 11. And what remained were basically players that seemed didn't really want to be there, a lot of them. And a lot of them, fed up with what was going on and everything that went on in the summer. So for Gary O'Neill to come in and to pull all that together as quickly as done, he's got a phenomenal home record. He picked points up away from home. They're comfortably mid-table. I don't really know what more he could have done. I'm even hearing on Dazzy's show about potential, like, could we nick into maybe a European place?
I think the three or four.
I don't know if that's
off at the moment. I think, and absolutely right. Everybody thought it was going to be a relegation battle this season, including Lopetegui, and it's just really, and in the summer, because FFP was being bandied around a lot, and some people start saying, "Oh, that's just a smokescreen. They've lost ambition. They've lost interest." Well, if they'd have caved into Lopetegui, they could be in all sorts of trouble now. And I do think, I don't know if obviously they had a dicky start to the season, and then they beat Manchester City, and obviously when O'Neill come in, it was like, oh, he's a cheap option, or PE teacher. And I do think that when he did Monday Night Football on Sky, and he spent about a couple of hours just talking through his tactics and his mindset, and I think that changed an awful lot of perceptions of him. But it's results, isn't it? Ultimately, you need to have results, and he's built that fans. But as we know in football, you're only a week away from a crisis, but it's going all right at the moment. But way to go, yeah.
We may as well touch on the FA Cup then, Daz. How are you feeling about that? I mean, you haven't played West Brom for ages, have you? So, your proper derby's back.
Yeah, they played in the COVID season. The last time they played in front of supporters years ago next month, and that was the final. And the last Wolves haven't won at the Hawthorn since 1996. which is staggering. I do people remember you and Robert scored a hat-trick. 11 games, Albion have won 6 and Wolves have drawn 5. So it's not been a very happy hunting ground. I just think that it's obviously you want your team to win, but I think it's great for the area. Again, it's got everybody buzzing. And it's just it's again, that thing before about, when things happen at your football club, you can feel it, can't you, around the town, around the city. And I think it's great. And 11:45 kickoff. 11:45. If it's Villa Blues later on in the FA Cup, it'll be about 7:30 in the morning.
I know, yeah.
But Blues will have to open even earlier.
Yeah, when the draw came out for that, for a West Midlands fan of our region, it's massive, really, because we saw all that hype of the Sunderland Newcastle game, and everybody's saying what noise, what a game, what a rivalry. But these are proper derbies, these West Midlands ones. So I can't wait to tune in for it. So let's pick the next team then. Next team out is going to be Walsall. So Daz, you touched on Walsall getting a little bit of form. League Two, they're not that far off the playoffs, are they?
No, they're 6 points off the playoffs now. It's been a weird old time because this is their 5th season now in League Two. And in my lifetime, they've always been like third tier. Might go up to the second tier for a bit, but generally third tier. The odd, if it went down, they'd only be down for a year and they'd come back up. And they've been stuck there. And every year they've changed the manager. Every year they've completely pretty much changed the entire squad with a revolving door. Every year they end up in mid-table. They've had the takeover. It felt like it was happening again. And in December, they were very close to the bottom 2. And the owner came over from America, and it felt as if the manager, Matt Sadler, was staring down the barrel. Then out of nowhere, they won about 5 games out of 6. They beat all the top teams. They're just 6 points off the playoffs now. And they've got 4 out of the next 5 games at home. So I think that this will be the testing time now for Walsall. If they can, the 6 points off the playoffs, if they can do well in 4 out of these 5 home games, they'll be right in there. If they don't take advantage, then I think it could be another season of like mediocrity again for them. So it's a big few weeks for them now.
Yeah, like
it's
you say,
interesting. Go on,
Justin.
I was saying it's an interesting one because this is Matt Sadler's first job, isn't it, Daz, if I'm correct, as a manager? And obviously he finished his playing career at Walsall, so he knows a lot about it. But I think there's a lot to be said for bringing these, not safe managers, but just, well, yeah, I suppose he's a safe pair of hands, somebody that's not maybe a high-flying foreign manager with all, like, even a Wayne Rooney type. So he is learning on the job, but he does seem to be learning very quickly. And I think, you've got to give him a lot of credit for the way he did. He started badly, stabilised the club. Walsall at the moment, like you're saying, League sort of 2, it has a bit of a feel of a non-league, sort of the way they go about almost every year having to turn over a whole team of players because they don't tend to have 3-4 year contracts. All these players are on sort of shorter 1-2 year deals. So if you do pick a bit of a diamond up, they're off, aren't they? Because you can't hold on to them. So I do feel a bit for sort of League 2 managers, but I think he has done a really good job. I think his last 10 games, he's got 16 points, and his first 20, you got 20 from the first 16 games, so that does show a real improvement in form. And in that league, you only need to get on a bit of a run like he's doing now, and all of a sudden that momentum can propel you into playoff zones. And I'm like you, Daz. Walsall for me was always probably higher end of League One that he's now, but and lower end Championship. Which I'm going back to sort of. Dave Kelly days and stuff like that. When they were a really nice team to go watch. Most Midlands team of sort of followers, second clubs, if you like, they always, go and watch them if your team's away from home. So I think it'd be nice to see them having a real good run. It'd be nice to see them get into that playoffs and even, hopefully get a promotion as well this season and get them back up amongst where I think they deserve to be, League One.
Again, it'd be good for the town of Walsall.
Yeah.
It really needs something. I wish they'd bring back the Arboretum. Sure, not the Arboretum, the lights. Surely someone somewhere. Yeah. I'll pick it in now, but we're always to go to the Arbo, didn't we? In September.
All the markets as well. The markets, the town centres, like I work in obviously shopping centres, and the town centres are decimated. So, like you alluded to at the start, that football clubs, although they're a sporting venue, they're the hub of the cities, aren't they? And Walsall.
Yeah.
Yeah, the heartbeat of the towns, Wolverhampton, Wolves are right in the middle of Wolves, Villa and Blues are pretty much close to Birmingham City Centre. And Walsall's more or less smack bang in the middle of Walsall. So they do they do feed into the general feeling around your area. So I think it is imperative that Walsall do have a good run now and hopefully get a promotion.
Yeah. Next up, we have got, save the best till last then. West Brom are up next. So West Brom are next. Are West Brom going to get promoted?
I think they're going to make the playoffs. I think, again, what a terrific manager. He's done an extraordinary job there with a team who, when Steve Bruce left them, they were in the bottom three. He lost his first home game against Sheffield United, 18 months ago. I think they went bottom or bottom two. I think they've picked up something like 60 points in 27 home games now in the league. And he's had a lot of injuries. Obviously, there's this massive cloud over the club regarding the owner and all the financial issues. And yet he doesn't moan. He gets on with it, and he just finds a way. And I think he's one of the best progressive coaches in English, younger coaches in English football at the moment, actually. And they're 5 points clear of 7th now, Albion, with 19 games to go. Very good at home. So they've got every chance. And it would be regardless of whether the takeover happens or not, it would be a game changer for the future of the club if they could get promoted this season. And if you don't get a point next season, you still get 160 odd million pounds, which would be, so it's they've got every chance of it. So I think you look at, I don't know what you think, but usually in the Premier League, there's a few poor teams. I don't think there was a poor team. Well, actually, I thought the worst team last season was Bournemouth, player for player, and Gary O'Neill kept them up. The three who went down, none of them are really that bad. And I think you're seeing that now in the Championship, that they're all up there along with Ipswich, aren't they? Like Southampton, Leeds, Leicester. They weren't that bad last season. It's just that three teams have got to go down, haven't they? So I think how strong they are. But once you take those out of the equation, I don't think there's anything to choose then. And Albion are right in there, and I think they've got every chance.
Yeah, he's a good coach. Where was he before West Brom? Well, Huddersfield.
He worked under Bielsa at Leeds. Then he took the Huddersfield job and he took them into the playoffs, from getting down towards the bottom of the league into the playoffs. And then he went off, was it Olympiacos or somewhere? We weren't there long. And then he came back and got the Albion job. And it was, from Steve Bruce to him, it was, they'd have gone down if they'd have
night and day.
But
his record's amazing.
Yeah,
I was looking forward to come out, and 62 games he's been in charge. He's won 31. That's 50% win rate. And it's not like he's gone into a club that's absolutely flying. That is a Leicester, a Southampton, or a Leeds that have come down. They managed to retain all their players. They haven't. They've been in disarray for two, 3 seasons. They've financial problems, selling everybody, having to rely on young kids coming through, blooding players, picking up bargains here and there and everywhere. And he's come in and revolutionised them, really. And I think I've read somewhere that he's quite friendly with Unai Emery as well. He does spend a lot of time with him. So it's obviously rubbing off, isn't it? The old Unai Emery effect. So, yeah, I think he's done really well. They've got, their problem this season has been got goals, hasn't it? I think Thomas Asante's got 9 and everyone's injured, aren't they?
Yeah, well, DK's coming. He was the main centre forward. They signed Josh Madger and then he got injured. They've had Jed Wallace.
They signed Andy Wyman?
Andy Wyman's gone there on loan, yeah. So that's another option.
That's a decent pickup experience in that division. Yeah. So, I think they've got a very good chance of playoffs. I think top 2 is probably too far, because I think the top 3, maybe Leeds, if they have a run, are probably going to swallow up the top 2. But I think, like you say, the home form's very good. If they can pick up points away from home, I look at the teams behind them: Sunderland, Watford, Hull, Middlesbrough. I think they've probably got enough to see those teams off, unless one has a mad run, which in the Championship can happen. Yeah, it always happens, doesn't it?
Yeah. It was Villa, weren't it, a few years ago? So
10 in a row.
Yeah. Right, finally then, Villa. So, me and Justin talk about Villa all the time, so we're going to shut up about Villa. Daz, you can do the talking on Villa, but I'd love to know from sort of like not a Villa fan, where do you think Villa are going to finish this season?
I think they've got every chance of being in the Champions League. And I'm a great believer in the league table doesn't lie. And I think when you had that week, when you had Manchester City and Arsenal back-to-back home games, and a lot of people, even Villa fans, if we take 3 points from these or 4 points from these, we'll be delighted. And it wasn't just the fact that you beat Manchester City, you absolutely schooled them. Even Pep couldn't come up with an excuse, just had to go, bloody hell, best team won by. And then 3 days later, not just after the physical demands of that game, but the psychological demands to then come in and play Arsenal and to have to scrap. And you're finding different ways to win matches. And just recently, I think it's 1 win in the last 4. And obviously, there's this whole debate now about since Sheffield United, teams are perhaps just going to be sitting deeper and saying, all right, break us down. So there might be an element, but we were saying on the phone tonight, I think a lot of it now is just down to a lot of the players are just knackered. And I think this break's come at the right time and allow a lot of them just to recharge their batteries, have a bit of a spark again and go again. But it's not like top 3 in the Premier League, a couple of 3 points off the top in Europe, the FA Cup. It's fantastic, isn't it? And you just enjoy the ride now, the second half of the season, I would say. I mean, a disaster now, you'd be in Europa League. That would be a horrible, terrible run into the end of the season. You're going to be in Europe again next year, guaranteed, I would say. It's just which competition again.
Yeah, and sometimes you'll get sort of like, I don't know, a team that's doing it a bit fluky, and it doesn't feel like that with Villa, does it? Because you look at all like the off-field stuff with, Monchi coming in, and there seems to be a transfer policy and a recruitment strategy. It really does feel long-term now, and I think for Villa fans, we've not really had that stability as a fan, because we've always sort of been Championship, getting back promoted to the Premier League, and there's always that edge of like, oh, we're going to go down and stuff. But it feels now where fans feel a bit more relaxed and on board, and I think that plays a massive part, I think. So, Justin, do you want to add anything what Daz has said?
No, I agree. Everything, I think we've done phenomenally well, haven't we? We speak about it week in, week out on the pod, and we can't really be happier, I suppose, than it's going. I'm happy to go on all fronts. I don't get this, let's, not take the FA Cup seriously. I mean, it's a tough draw away at Chelsea. But I was looking, I think, this morning at the draw, and Tottenham have got Man City, and we've got Chelsea. Now, if we were to knock Chelsea out and Tottenham beat Man City, which is a very real possibility because it's at the line, then there ain't that many, of the top sides left in the FA Cup. So, a couple of, lower league sides, I know we've fallen foul to that in the past, but we could really go far in the FA Cup as well. And the Europa League opens up again in March, and who knows who we're going to get in that. And they're two-legged games. So if you win your home game, you can maybe go a bit. There's ways of balancing this squad out to go on all 3 fronts. Top 4's priority for me. I think, if you'd have offered Villa fan at the start of the season 4th position, they would have absolutely snatched your hand off and said, we'll just finish it there. But I still think that's a massive possibility, with the way we're playing. And I agree again with Daz that this 2-week break's come at a fantastic time. You've got Yuri Tielemans coming back. You've got Pau Torres coming back. So the players that have been missing these last few weeks, Kamara's been suspended. And even the likes of Emi Buendia, possibly we might see him before the end of the season. So, it's massive, isn't it? It's huge for us, and the longer we can continue in the sort of pathway we're going on, then the better we're going to be, aren't we, towards the end of the season?
Definitely. But Daz is gone. He's gone. They've kicked him out. Told him he's got to go home now. But yeah, so we was going to finish the episode there anyway. So hopefully you've all enjoyed having Daz on and having Daz's thoughts. And he's here. He is. Back. We were just saying we were going, Daz.
Hey.
We're saying that they're finally letting you go exit.
Home. Yeah, I ain't done this.
You've been locked in.
How about you? Oh, fantastic.
Thanks, Daz. Anyway, it's been great having you on, Daz, again.
Thank you for inviting me on. I really appreciate it. It's just great just to chat football, isn't it? And God, wait, if Villa are 4th with a game to go and Tottenham are 5th, the national media will still be going, can Tottenham make Champions League? It still won't be about you.
Yeah,
I know,
it's
I've gone back to my
embarrassing, isn't
rant
it?
again with the steam coming out the ears.
No,
Thanks ever so much for
look,
inviting us.
you're one of the most passionate football fans I've ever met in my life, and that's why you do the job you do. But I think us as a podcast, and I know that the Wolves one and the Blues ones that do them as well, and you yourself, we have to batter and batter and batter this door down because nobody else is going to do it for us. We've got to do it for our clubs and our region. I'm passionate about it like you are, and Luke is as well. So we'll just keep doing what we're doing. And if the clubs can continue on the trajectories they're going on, we cannot be ignored for much longer.
Brilliant.
Definitely.
It was almost Churchillian, that was. I'd vote for you.
Cool. Thanks, right. Thanks, Daz. Thanks, everyone.